Hey guys, so today is going to be another DBT skills video today. We are going to be covering radical acceptance, which is found in the distress tolerance part of the handbook. So radical acceptance is a skill that I've had a lot of trouble with. I find it extremely annoying, and as do a lot of other people in DBT who've heard the skill will often say that radical acceptance is really annoying and really difficult and something that you just don't want to do, which makes perfect sense. So let's get into a little bit about what radical acceptance is and why it is so difficult. So the main thing that radical acceptance is asking you to do is to accept your reality as it is. So accept your situation, events that are happening around you, kind of everything about you in the past, in the present, kind of just accept all of that as truth, so you're not fighting reality. So one of the things that makes this so difficult is a lot of the times when you're using the radical acceptance skill, you're asking yourself to accept some pretty terrible and painful and traumatic events, which obviously is not fun. But the purpose of radical acceptance is to totally accept your circumstances as they are. So this means basically with every part of you, you're going to accept them and you're going to stop fighting reality. So that's the reason why this is a distress tolerance skill, is because normally if you're fighting reality and you're not accepting something as true and you're trying to convince yourself that it's not true, you're actually going to be causing yourself a lot more distress than you are by accepting it, which sometimes feels backwards. And that's one that feels backwards for me a lot of the times, because I'm like, if I accept this traumatic event as a real thing that happened to me, then I'm definitely going to feel worse, which might be true. It might make you feel a lot worse about it at first because you're accepting that it is real. But in the long run, it does help, just because for me, the amount of energy that I spend trying to convince myself that certain things didn't actually happen to me ends up making me a lot more stressed and a lot more overwhelmed. So what are some different things that have to be accepted? So I'm going to go through what the DBT workbook says about this, and there's 4 things that have to be accepted when you're doing radical acceptance. The first is, like I've been talking about, you have to just accept reality as it is. The facts about the present and the past are the facts, even if you don't like them. 2, you have to accept that there's limitations on the future for everybody, but only realistic limitations need to be accepted. 3, everything has a cause. So every painful event and every positive event, all of these things have a cause to them. And 4, and this is a really big one that you have to accept, and that I have a lot of trouble accepting, and it can be kind of frustrating, but you have to accept that life can be worth living even with painful events. The reasons to do this skill are kind of some of the things that we already talked about. When you're not accepting reality and you're rejecting reality, it's not changing anything for you. It's just making things more difficult for you because the painful situation is still there, even if you are trying to believe that it is not there. In order to improve and kind of change your situation, you first have to accept that the situation is happening. And then you can't avoid pain, which is kind of what at least I try to do when I'm trying to avoid radical acceptance, is I'm doing it to try to avoid the pain of accepting it. And when you don't accept reality, it can start to turn your pain into suffering and keep you stuck there. Because again, in order to make any changes, you first have to acknowledge that there's something wrong. All right, so now I want to just briefly talk about the reasons why I find radical acceptance so difficult, and a couple of them are highlighted in the DBT workbook as well. And one of the things that I really think about when I'm doing radical acceptance is I feel like if I am accepting something, I am making light of it and I am saying that it's okay. So the book does clearly define that radical acceptance is not approval, compassion, love, or against change. And this is where I've had the most trouble with this skill. I think it lies in the word acceptance, because to me and to many other people, the word acceptance kind of has the connotation that goes along with it that like you're accepting something because you think it's okay, or you're accepting it because you agree with it, which is not the case for radical acceptance. So one thing that came up in the DBT skills group that I'm in is just reframing radical acceptance as radical acknowledgement. And I think that this fits a lot better. I think it doesn't sound as good, like radical acceptance, like I feel like sounds good. Radical acknowledgement, not so much. But I think it's a lot more accurate to call it that because that's really what you're doing. You're just acknowledging the facts of what is going on in your life, what happened to you in the past, and how that's like affecting your future. You're just acknowledging those things. You're not saying like, hey, these things are cool. You're just saying like, these are things that happened and I have a lot of painful emotions around them and that's okay. But the events that cause this are real and I'm just going to acknowledge that it's real. So I find, for me at least, using acknowledgement instead of acceptance kind of tricks my brain into being able to do the skill because I'm not thinking about accepting as like saying this is okay. I'm thinking of acknowledging as, oh, this is something that happened. And that's the first step that you kind of have to take in healing. And I think something that is really important to point out is that radical acceptance or radical acknowledgement, however you want to call it, isn't a skill to cure your past trauma. It shouldn't be used to be like, okay, I'm going to radically accept that everything bad that happened to me in the past. I'm just going to radically accept all of that and it's fine now. That's not the point of the skill at all. The point is to actually use it to make change in your life. So the first step to healing the trauma is to acknowledge that it happened to you, and then move on from there. So this, again, I really want to stress that this isn't a skill that is supposed to just make all your trauma go away. It's just a way to help bring the trauma kind of into reality and be able to talk about it and accept that it's something that happened to you in order to begin working through it and begin healing from it. So that's it for today's video on radical acceptance, or as I like to now call it, radical acknowledgement. I hope that you found the reframing that I did with this helpful. And if you have thought about it this way, or maybe you've thought about radical acceptance another way, please feel free to leave that in the comments. I know this is a really difficult skill for a lot of people, myself completely included in that. It can be really frustrating. But again, it is one of the biggest ways to help start you on the path to healing from your trauma by accepting or acknowledging what happened to you. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. And if you like this video and you want to learn more DBT skills in the future, I will be continuing to post those on my channel. So it would be awesome if you wanted to subscribe to me. And thank you guys so much. And I hope you're having a great day.